Tall Tales. The Nymph Symphony.
Chapters.
Chapter 2. Brawl. I had lost my sight near completely. I felt sick from being hurled around like a rag doll. Ebony relentlessly clung on to me as she jumped and slammed us down and about, digging her claws deep into my sides as she tossed me from puddle to post. Around us, the crowd's tears of enjoyment had turned to stunned silence. "She's had enough," I heard one brave person stammer. "It's okay. You can stop now. You've already won," said another scared cadet with a similar frightful panic to his tone. Voices I couldn't put an exact face to, due to the murky grayness of my own mud-drenched hair completely blocking my eyes. There were a few brave souls working together in an attempt to drag Ebony off me. My skin burned as she bit my leg, resisting the others' tugs to pull her away. She kicked them with her furry black back legs, pushing them away. Her head appeared above me, her teeth retracting slightly as two giant canine fangs prepared to pierce my neck. My head was spinning too much to do anything. This was the first time I'd ever come close to knocking on Death's door. And for what? A fight born out of anger? Ebony's temper had simply bested my own, leaving her with hairy, unflattering cheeks across long, protruding, blood-hungry jaws. Her deadly eyes glowed yellow with rage as she hesitated, doing her best to fight her own fur-covered transformation. And then her teeth snapped down from my neck. My eyes closed in a cloudy terror, foreseeing the Reaper's deadly scythe readily approaching me. I waited and waited, but no stabbing pain came. I opened my eyes and saw that the prince and his own senior friends had successfully pulled Ebony away, dragging her by her hind legs. Saliva dripped from her mouth, running along my chest and legs like a leaking water tap, while I laid on the floor, frozen in fear. I lifted my head as much as possible to watch her get dragged away, seeing her kick and claw at the ground, struggling to escape. She broke free, charging back towards me. The prince dived on top of her, twisting and spinning her onto the ground, where he pinned her legs as best he could. "Ebony, look at me. Look at me," he yelled, trying to wake her from a primordial world. His intervention only seeming to enrage her further, as she slashed him across his shoulder and chest, madly wrestling for her freedom once again. I couldn't stop my eyes from blinking shut as I laid there, too dazed to move. I felt like a spinning compass on top of a magnet, unable to find its north, merely waiting for her next pending attack. My head fell backwards, collapsing to the blinding light of a heavy sun gleaming directly into my face, as I phased in and out of consciousness, time journeying onwards without me. I opened my eyes, reminding myself I needed to stay strong and aware if I was to survive. I could see the sun had traveled a small distance across the sky, and realized I'd been passed out longer than I thought. I looked across to see Camila holding down Ebony right beside me, puffing and panting as this girl slowly reverted back to her former civilian self. Everyone stood perfectly still, silently quaking from Camila as she started to preach to the spectating crowd. "I should have let her end you all," she said to the crowd circled around us, an atmosphere of anonymous regret. Her golden diadem crowned bouncing light of the sun and glaring it back into everybody's eyes, as if it too were mad at them and wished them to bow their heads in a shared blinding shame. A bedeled circlet given to her by her late husband. It was all cracked and dented now, its only purpose these days being to protect her forehead from downward battle thrusts. Is this what we are all here to learn? How to beat down those who have never raised an arm in their life? To attack the civilians you swore to protect? She snapped before combusting into a thin white cloud of smoke and vanishing. The crowd all smirking and snickering happily, content with the lack of punishment based on her furious departure. Smiles all fading synchronously and inverting into worried frowns as Camila pushed aside even her elder recruits to make a path from the downhill marketplace for the doctor to come rushing in upon her hasty orders. Ebony's very own father, Dr. Maxwell, puffing as he ran towards me in a mad dash. Only really then had I actually considered how serious my own injuries might have been, especially when I had to see Dr. Maxwell pass right over his own daughter, who was sitting on the ground near me, sobbing, ignoring her as she and her scathed prince dwelled there together in a collective misery. The look in Ebony's eyes saying it all. How remorseful she was for losing control once again. Her compassionate prince knelt down with her. Despite all the gashes she'd left across his body, including one small slit right across the left cheek of his face. That man sympathetically rubbing her back and shoulders, trying to calm her tears, while the doctor put his hands on my cheeks to inspect me. His palms glowed as tiny microscopic bugs fluttered out from his skin, flickering little firefly globes that jumped about my body. A flush of heat purging and cleansing every cut and bruise, watching open wounds mend and scars evaporate. Something simply too indescribable to put into words. After all, Dr. Maxwell was the Crown's leading physician, one of the very few left with a talent for regrowth and cellular propagation, making him one of our most vital medics, not to mention our top plant breeder and farmer. A rather nice and kind type of person who has probably contributed more to our society than, many dare say, Midas and Helios ever had. Although he wasn't someone who had an interest in politics or governance, as his only goal in life was saving the world one wounded soldier at a time. This was the first time I'd ever felt those little seeds of life singe my own skin, his living fiery spores of light all bouncing as they searched for damaged flesh to restore and bring me back to perfect health. The groggy feeling that had hung over me lifting as I began to feel much better than I ever had before. "Thank you," I coughed out to him, just clearing my throat as he too took a similar stance to catch his own breath and steady his own delirious wobbles. The doctor smiling at me politely before recomposing himself enough to walk off and have a few silent words with his remorseful daughter. Camila took the doctor's place above me, her tall red flags offering me the tiniest cast of shade as they blocked out the sun. "Based on your performance, I'm assuming you didn't come here for tryouts," she jokingly said as she sat down on the grassy mud beside me. "So what brings a lady like yourself to this sad lot?" she asked, compassionately placing her hand on my cheek to double-check if I was all right. This woman was my best friend's mother, and someone who acted as my own mother whenever she knew I was in most need of one. She raised her voice a little as she went on to say, "I only ask because I assumed these recruits were too dumb to consider you might be here for an important and timely reason." She then loudly spoke, only to caringly wipe away the drying smudges of mud, blood, and tears still spread across my face. "I came for help," I said vaguely, the senior soldiers appearing most apologetic upon finally hearing this, many of them still recovering from their own harsh bumps from Camila, when she'd quickly cleared them away from me. "And this is how they treated you?" Camila said, unimpressed. "Probably why we still call them recruits, she added, softly insulting them before getting to the more important details. "So, how can I personally help you, dear?" she asked me, helping me back to my feet. "The princess has run away again. I think she's gone to Ambervale Farms to nurse the injured," I said, my grave news igniting excited whispers in the crowd. After all, these prepubescent soldiers had all been wishing for an opportunity like this. An opportunity to prove themselves as worthy candidates for Camila's prestigious Vanguard regiment. But Camila stood there quietly puzzled, seeming burdened as she alone had to make the choice over what to do. "My lady, I will go," said someone from the crowd. "Me too," said another. Soon everyone was volunteering for this golden opportunity. "How can any of you?" Camila snapped. "You lot can't even tell the difference between friend and foe. I'm sorry, recruits, but this task will be left to those with a little more experience," she announced, her words quickly crushing their foolish fantasies. The crowd began advancing around us, protesting Camilla's words. "But, madam, she's not even in heavy danger," someone foolishly yelled from the back. "The vanguard is supposed to remain here," shouted another. "Please, we can do this, miss," pleaded another. "There won't even be any danger," said others as her pouting naively continued. "That's enough, recruits," Camilla shouted, scaring everyone else but me back a few short, cautious steps. "This task is not for the untrained." She then proceeded to loudly explain, ending these novices' childish insolence. No one dared question their mighty legioness any further from then on. All but one stubborn man, that is. Prince Arlo stepping out from the edge of that ring. "Madam, I will go," said the prince, more of a statement than it was a request, as he publicly endorsed his own participation and candidacy amidst the ever-eager crowd. "Arlo, you know I can't," Camilla began to protest. "She's my sister." Arlo then chose to rudely cut her off, the only person who would dare do so. "I'm the only one who knows her well enough to find her, and you know that," he added, coming over to speak to her directly. "You haven't known her for a long time," I spat back under my breath, just loud enough for all of his crowd to hear. "Speak up," Arlo retaliated blankly towards me, his eyes locking on me as I stood slowly pushed out before the front of the crowd. "We're not here to make cakes, Kaya. If you know something, just say it already. None of us here care about formalities," he said towards me. "My prince, if your sister heard you calling for her, then she would keep walking," I responded with sheer determination and little restraint. I looked to Camilla while she patrolled past us both in deep consideration of what Arlo and I had to say. "I'm sorry, my lord, but that's the truth," I quickly added, remembering my place and exactly who I was speaking to. The prince's confident gaze beamed into mine, just as his mother's had 40 minutes ago. "So says the friend who lost her," he suavely and confidently then retorted, swaying the skeptical and snickering crowd as he walked up beside me. "The very same friend who's now here begging for our help," he added loudly from beside me, attempting to belittle my argument and convince Camilla and the rest of his peers he was still the best man for the job. "Madam, you can send your finest soldiers out to look for her, but they won't find her if she doesn't want to be found," he continued, confidently walking around the circle. He gave Camilla some space and distance to assess the issue and deeply weigh out our two rivaling arguments. "Unfortunately, I think you're right," Camilla said towards him after a moment of consideration. "Both of you are," she then pursued to say. "I'm sorry, Kaya. I hate to have to do this to you, but it is going to take both of you to find her." "Do I get a choice in the matter?" I asked rather rhetorically, rolling my eyes as I knew full well the troubled position Camilla and I were in, and what had to be done about it. "Only if the answer is yes," she replied, trying to make light of this heavy burden. Irony to the fact that she was gladly willing to risk her own neck just to spare me from being punished by the queen. Ambervale is a fair distance away, and the princess could be virtually anywhere in between, Camilla then said to the prince and me. "I will give you as much of my unit as I can currently spare, as well as the fastest and strongest steeds in the stables," she cautiously decided, doing her best to comfort me, before giving me a moment to let the gravity of the situation slowly settle in. "However," she continued, pausing a second time for the prince, wishing to amplify the seriousness of what she said next. "Arlo, I'll only warrant this task under one strict condition. That no matter what happens, both of you stay to the roads and return back here at first sign of danger, regardless of how trivial it might appear. Am I crystal clear about that?" She focused her words almost solely on the prince, who was well known for his impulsive tendency towards recklessness. "You will not stop or go off-road until you meet me at the Ambervale marketplace later for safe extraction, and that is either with or without her," she then issued to us. Arlo and I locking eyes with each other before looking back to her and agreeing with a small synchronous nod. Everything seemed set in place until Ebony leapt forward to offer her services. "Let me go too, my lady. Please. The more the better. And my foolishness has already delayed this mission long enough. Something I can only hold myself personally accountable for," she then pleaded before her commander, a certain sincerity and insecurity to her tone. The fear of Arlo leaving without her, more terrifying than any physical danger she might find herself in outside the safety of this high-walled castle. "Out of the question," Camila reluctantly shrugged, trying to walk past her. "Cammy, please," Ebony pleaded again, blocking any further movement forward, her groveling rather amusing me, step by step impeding Camila's passage away from her. Ebony looking to her father for help, his gaze toward Camila offering his own approval. An obvious need for Ebony to redeem herself, suddenly forcing Camila to reconsider. "Fine," Camila huffed, nodding in an exhausted approval. "But only because if I don't, you're just going to sneak off to join them anyway," she stated defeatedly. Ebony hugging her in an impatient excitement. Thank you," she said before prancing towards the prince and me. "You know, I had enough to deal with today before all of this," Camila somberly advertised, sighing defeated but sarcastically towards us, before waving over two prestigious warriors present for her induction to be our elite escorts. Arlo and Ebony sharing their own cheeky smile as they happily prepared to welcome over the elite fighters they were hoping to one day sit alongside. "Now, if you will all excuse me, my son is demonstrating one of his new designs, and I don't want to miss it," she concluded before walking downhill towards the sandy courtrooms of the central marketplace. As with that excitement all ending, the rest of the soldiers were left with little recoil but to fall back in line and simply return to their senior coaches and various muddy training stalls, leaving Arlo, Ebony, and me behind, with those two veteran soldiers to help escort us into the lowest depths of the castle's underground bunkers and lead us through the very enclosed tunnel gates that I tried to gain passage through earlier.